Hello and welcome to another edition of the SBK Betting Podcast, where we're drawing a close of the flat turf season. Yes, it is the customary British Champions Day, which ends out what's been another fantastic, fabulous, indifferent, average, whatever you like to call it, season. It's definitely thrown up lots of storylines, lots of swings and roundabouts. It's been pretty much the Frankie Dettori show all the way throughout. We've been worried about the weather throughout the course of this year. I remember going back all the way to the start of the season for the first classic, and we did it in an absolute downpour, and we'll end it on a downpour in the only way that we do here in England. But before we get into British Champions Day and all the various storylines that have been created in the build-up and what we've got to look forward to, we've got to reflect on last week and what a cracking week it was for this podcast. Ross Millar is going to be the saddest person of all of us to see the flat turf season come to an end, because just as it comes to an end, he gets it going. He's got going. I honestly felt a little bit worried what you were going to do without this season now that it's coming to an end. You went 4 out of 4 last week. The shunter winning was Tahiyra. Let's be honest, he is really a jump source, as is Punctuation, who was also part of those selections as well. But the shunter was the 14-1 highlight. All of us across the board went with City of Troy, but TC and Ross also went with the winning nap in Ancient Wisdom, who won at 2-1. Obviously, the City of Troy was the real highlight, but we knew that a long time ago, TC. I think we should talk about it just quickly. We knew he was good. How much better do you think he is now, Tom, after seeing what he did on what was described as ground he didn't enjoy?
Yeah, well, he wouldn't have liked underfoot conditions. There's no doubt about that. Aidan O'Brien obviously said that he wouldn't have really been 100% ready either after the layoff. And they didn't seem like they would have been shocked if he actually lost in the pre-race interview. But this is City of Troy. This horse is unbelievable. You kind of just step forward from his superlative win. Got an RPR of 124. Aidan said it's the best 2-year-old he's ever trained. I don't disagree. Johannesburg technically is 125 compared to City of Troy's 124, but I think City of Troy is in a league of his own. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing him in his 3-year-old campaign.
Yeah, he'll definitely make the winter go a little bit shorter, as we got to look forward to that. He's still got a lot to prove to get anywhere near the likes of Frankel. We should never make comparisons. But Ross, as I said, 4 out of 4, a bit of a jumps feel to it, and must be delighted with that. Coming to this point of the season, how do you reflect on it? How do you look back on this season? Because I've had a bit of a discussion with someone that we know very well from the behind the scenes of this podcast, talking about that's been a little bit average. There's nothing that's been amazing about it. Is there been a real highlight for you?
Did they miss City of Troy then? Because he's been amazing twice. I mean, I think we can get very guilty of being exceptionally greedy as race fans. I've really enjoyed it. You know, as you know, when I started doing this, the summer was pretty much for me. I would keep a tab of it, particularly with the 2-year-olds with the juvenile watch, but I didn't throw myself into it. And year on year, of course, as you get to know the horses a bit more, you get a little bit better at perhaps finding a few winners here and there, but also you get to know them a bit more and get to get your favourites and ones you don't like and ones you do. I've really enjoyed it. I think Paddington was a really good story at the start of the year. He's been freshened up, I think, and then City of Troy. Okay, we only saw him 3 times, but crikey, he was impressive. Well, all 3 starts, but particularly in the superlative stakes, and then again last weekend. I think the battalion of Aidan O'Brien 2-year-olds has been impressive. Then there was a story that Charlie Appleby didn't have any 2-year-olds, and then he rocked up to Newmarket last week and reminded everyone that he did. So I think there's been lots of stories. For me, the Frankie angle did drag a bit, but you have to concede if he had been retiring, it would have been perfectly fair enough, because he's done a lot for the sport. But I also think the sport's done a lot for him. But no, I've really enjoyed the season. I disagree that it's been boring. I think there's been plenty, and there's been certainly plenty of sort of discussion points in terms of ground and where horses are going to go and all the rest of it. And it hasn't stopped right up to this week.
Yeah, and I would say that there have been points where I've gone to the races thinking, this is why I love it. And I remember driving up to the King George at Ascot this year, really feeling like a little kid again. That excitement of seeing all the best middle distance horses running against each other. And I think that lived up to all expectations. Just really adored that. Loved the likes of living the dream, doing it for the good guys, and it not all being about those with the big money and all the big pedigrees. And that story hopefully isn't going to finish yet when we've got the Breeders' Cup. And the Breeders' Cup might be the beneficiary of some of the horses that we don't see this weekend at British Champions Day, because this leads us quite seamlessly into what might be literally a bit of a damp squid. Ascot is later this year than it has been in previous years, and being 1 week later has meant that we've got more rain than, well, we've used to this. I think I've expected this years gone by that Ascot will always have at least soft ground in their going description come Champions Day, but we've got biblical proportions. There's some sort of random name for the storm that we've got at the moment, Babette or something. It is meant to rain a lot more. We're recording on Thursday, on Friday, to change the going description to nearly heavy all over. At the moment, the official going description, I think, is soft and soft on the straight course, round course is soft, and then you've got the inner course where the flat course is good to soft in places, and that is what the main talking point has been. Tom, this is going to carry on whether we're going to have it on the inner course for a few of the races, the sort of middle distance races, or we're going to stay to the normal round course all the way to literally the last moment on Saturday. So for punters, it's extremely difficult to know what racetrack we're riding on. How difficult is that for us when we're coming into working out what we're selecting, and what are the nuances, what are the differences between the tracks?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I mean, firstly, what I want to say is thank God the racing should go ahead no matter what. The worst case scenario is we're moving tracks, fingers crossed. So that's the positive in this scenario. The negative is, as you say, it's completely different. So you're going from the outer track to the inner track, potentially. Not only is there going to be a big going discrepancy there, as you say, right now the outer track is listed as soft, will almost certainly be heavy and extremely bottomless if they do race there. If they suddenly move it on Saturday morning to the inner track, it's currently listed as good to soft in places. That'll probably be more on the soft side, not heavy. So there's a big difference in ground. So not only have you got to factor that in, but there's also a shorter run-in. There's also a tighter turn. There's lots going on, lots of differences between the two tracks. And given we're filming this on Thursday, this is absolutely no help at all to us or any other anti-post punter, even if you count 2 days as anti-post. Now, I think they should be telling us on Thursday, knowing exactly how much we're going to be expecting on Friday. You know, these forecasts, we do blame the weatherman quite often for getting it wrong. But when they're just 24 hours out, we should know exactly how much is coming. They should make the decision now. That being said, for this podcast alone, and I don't know about you guys, but for clarity, I'm going to be tipping horses based on the fact they're staying on the outer track. I just want to make that clear. Obviously, I'm going to keep the same horses if they move, because I can't change it after they suddenly describe on Saturday how they've changed to the inner track from the outer track. But what I'm saying is right now, the outer track is what I'm focusing on. So that's what I'm tipping for.
Yes, and to make it even more clear, we've obviously got 6 races on Saturday at Ascot, which is customary. And the ones that will be really affected are the Long Distance Cup, the 2 mile race, the Champions Fillies and Mare Stakes over 1 mile 4, and the Champions Stakes over 1 mile 2. They potentially could go onto the inner track, which is essentially the jumps course, which would have a tighter bend, tighter turn. It's further away from the grandstand, but specifically the biggest difference is that it's got better ground. It hasn't been used throughout the course of this year. They're preparing it for the jump season. The races that won't be affected, we assume, are the 6 furlong champion sprint, the QEII over the mile, and the Balmoral handicap over the mile as well. So I think probably the best race to start with is the QEII. We're going to focus on that and the Champion Stakes. That race, we've got all the declarations, but there isn't anything I'd imagine that's going to be too much affected, and really it's good that the main sort of figure over the course of this weekend, who's probably got the most amount of runners, Biden O'Brien, is John and Thady Gosden. They're also wanting to keep hold of their trainers title, which they think that they'll be getting on Saturday. But they made the decision this week about whether they were going to run some of their horses, and have kept us up to date, essentially as early as possible, which we thank them for. Inspiral is not running in the QE2. She is going to the Breeders' Cup we hope, as her second alternative. And Nashua has switched from the Champion Stakes to the QE2 as well. So those are big additions or losses to the race. But importantly, those that have been declared are ones that we've been hoping to see for quite some while now. Paddington, eagerly anticipated after what was, you'd have to say, a disappointing run in the Juddmonte International back now nearly 59 days ago when it gets to Saturday. Tahiyra will be her first run against the opposite sex. She'll be lining up for Dermot Weld and Chris Hayes. As I said, Nashua, she's in here as well. Big rock for the French team. France have done very well in coming over to Champions Day in the past. So you can say the same for Factor Cheval. Chaldine has now got Frankie Dettori booked after Inspiral is a non-runner. Angel Blur, Rogue Millennium, Check and Challenge, and High Royal and Epictetus make up the lineup. So we'll come back to you first then, TC, without further ado. We've got a lot of prize money. We've got the horses essentially that we'd want to see, and soft ground. You'd have to think for pretty much all of them shouldn't be too much of an inconvenience. Great to have the horses that we have in here. Really, really looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. It's actually a very good renewal of the QE2. But firstly, before I get into the selections and the overview of the race, I want to say full credit to the Gosdens for actually taking Inspiral out and going towards the Breeders' Cup with her. You know, they've only got, I think, around £300,000 in hand of Aidan O'Brien right now in the Trainers' Championship. Obviously, it ends on Saturday. Winning this race, which is 650,000 to the winner, would be huge for them. They could be greedy and try to run Inspiral here, despite the fact that they know that she doesn't like the ground. She got stuffed in this race last year when it was soft, but they've been clever and they've moved her to the Breeders' Cup, keeping Nashua in this race. I think that's crucial. Full credit to them, not getting greedy. Talk about the Gosdens. Nashua is going to be my selection in the race. Now, she ticks a fair few boxes. She's run to a mark good enough to win the average renewal of the QE2. She's got proven stamina over further, so should definitely be suited by this mile stiff track at Ascot. And I think the extra stamina is crucial here because they could have gone to the Champion, as you say. This race is going to be run at a fast gallop with Big Rock up front, I'm sure of it. He's only got one way of running. Straight to the front, gallop hard and try to hold off the rest of the field. Nashua's got this high cruising speed. She could easily get the ideal toe just in behind the speed, and that will be absolutely perfect for her. So I love the fact they've rerouted her to this race. The Gosdens have a good record, winning 2 of the last 6 renewals. Obviously, they've had Inspiral beaten, Palace Pier also beaten at short price in this race as well, but still 33% over the last 6 years is a good strike rate. I think Holly Doyle is on the perfect horse for this race. The ground is going to be ideal as well for Nashua. So she's going to be my selection. Just to touch on a couple of the others, Paddington's obviously the horse to beat in here. He had a fantastic start to the season, but he had a very busy start to the season as well. He was running week in, week out, and then he got beaten. You know, horses can obviously get beaten, especially when they run numerous times in a short period of time. That kind of exploit can just take its toll on the horse. You know, their constitution gets put into play and fitness, etc., mentality. And he's rightly been beaten. You know, there was no excuses that day. Freshened up now and he can easily come back and win. But he's 10 to 11 or he's around even money. He's very short in this race. And I think he has to be taken on. It's not a penalty kick by any means. And actually, albeit he's won on heavy ground, I don't think he really wants this kind of underfoot conditions either. I also don't think Tahiyra wants it. Now, I know she has plenty of form on deep ground, but she's very small. She's not going to really relish it. Yes, she gets through it, but I don't think she relishes it quite like Nashua does. Big Rock does relish the ground, but he hasn't been as good this year as he was last year. Factor Cheval needs to improve to beat Paddington, and given I'm trying to find the winner, and I don't like Paddington, I can't have Factor Cheval. So it's Nashua, not just by default, but I think she is the default selection as well as having the most cast iron claims.
Yeah, and she has already beaten Paddington. You know, she was ahead of him in the Juddmonte International, where, you know, we can forgive Paddington for probably being a little bit over the top. But I remember at the time thinking, right, he's done against the 3-year-olds. He then went to the Eclipse and he beat Emily Upjohn. How good was that form in the Eclipse? I'm not really certain. Sussex Stakes again, was it a weak enough race? Is this a lot stronger? Again, should he be, Ross, the price that he is, considering he's already been beaten by a horse in this field in Nashua, and the case still stands that he might still just feel the effects. But I'm always loath to put any doubt around Aidan O'Brien. We know what he can do. He's done it. It's been the kind of storyline throughout the course of the year, and this would be a much more straightforward bit of training than any of the Auguste Rodin magic he's poured over this season.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm looking at this simplistically, but I think we were all pretty much in agreement that he probably didn't run to his level last time in the Juddmonte. That was his 7th start of the season. I think he's the standout here, and I know he's short prices around about 11 to 8. I think at the moment, I expect him to shorten up, but I think that's perfectly reasonable. He's 1 on heavy. He's 3 from 3 on soft. Tom mentioned the stamina. I think that's definitely an angle, but he clearly stays a mile and a quarter. And I just think he's the most uncomplicated horse in this race, and that can count for a lot. Nashua I respect, but she's run twice on soft ground in the Prix-l'Opera and the Nassau, and she was beaten both times. And arguably her best form in the Falmouth and then the Juddmonte itself when she was beaten has come on better ground. So I'm not sold on the ground for her. I agree with TC. I'm not sold on the ground for Tahiyra either. And again, the form of Tahira's win last time, Rogue Millennium, was stone cold last. Next time she's 40 to 1 here. She's 10 times the price. And Meditate, who I thought had actually shaped like she was a little bit better than the bare result, was well beaten 5th on her next start. So I'm not sure that form is all that much against the fillies coming in against the boys. I just think it was a simple case of Paddington didn't run to his level. It was the end of a busy section of a campaign. He's had 60 days to freshen himself up. I think he's the clear pick in this, and I'd be surprised if he didn't win this.
Okay, is there anything to be said? They've got 11 runners here, and maybe TC, your best person to ask draw wise. They go down. It's the draw will be placed in the middle of the track, won't it? Do you want to be too much on the wing? Do you think Tahiyra coming out of 10 is a negative?
I mean, it could be a negative. She could get outside of no cover, and obviously that's never a positive, no matter who the horse is. I remember Animal Kingdom actually back in the day at Royal Ascot was drawn slightly wide, had no cover whatsoever, coming over for US, was sent off like 5 to 4 and got absolutely stuffed. So you don't want to be on the wing. Big Rock is the likely speed, as I say. He's drawn in 6. I imagine they'll go in like an arrow formation down the middle, maybe even a little bit more strung out, because as I say, he's only got one way of running, and they won't be too slow early on. So look, it could be a negative if you're out on the wing, but at the same time, there's every chance that Chris Hayes or any of the riders in flank draws can get across and get some cover.
Okay, look, I hear what you're all saying. I think this is a race, really the best race on the card. Paddington have so much respect for. Difficult to see why he can't come back after that pretty much heavy defeat. Nashua, I would be less inclined with, just because I agree. I think the ground might not just be right for her. I think just sort of opting in around. I would have rather seen her at the Breeders' Cup, but we're going to see her next year in training, and I hope we're going to see Tahiyra in training as well. I don't think she's as small as you think. I was lucky to be there on the first day of Irish Champions Festival, and remember Dermot Wells saying how much she'd strengthen out. She's actually have a quote here that she's 8 to 10 kilos heavier than when she won at Royal Ascot. She's just taking her time to strengthen up and fill out, a bit like her half sister did to Nawa. I think she'll be fine going through the ground. She's been managed very well. She's not had a hard season. Nashua has been on the go a good bit. She's had a bit of a break since Leopardstown, but she's been running since May. That would just concern me a little bit. Whereas Tahiyra, yes, she needs to improve, but I think she is still improving, whereas we might just have seen the limit of Paddington. I don't think we've got to the bottom of Tahiyra yet, and I'm happy to side with her in what is a fascinating renewal of the QE2 at 3:05 on Saturday. So a different selection from all of us in that race. We will go one forward to the 3:45 to the QEII Champion Stakes. That will be over 1 mile 2 furlongs, and as said at the beginning of the pod, at the moment we are expecting or assuming we're going to be running on the round course, but we could be going in inner. Whether that will affect who that will affect, we'll see. We'll try and work that out, especially draw wise too. I think that it's very unlikely that we'll see Mostahdaf. they're going to make the decision. As much as we thank John and Thady Gosden for keeping it very open and clear what they're doing with their fillies, Mostahdaf, they want to come down to the wire. Shadwell have had a wonderful season with him. I'd love to see him at the Breeders' Cup. I think he'll be really suited by the quicker surface out there and their running style. But I think Shadwell would like to have him run over here in the UK before maybe that's the end of his racing career. But if we don't have him, we'll definitely have Horizon D'Or for the French. He's on this brilliant winning streak. We've got King of Steel. He's had a very interesting season, both on the race course and with all those connected to him as well. He'll be ridden by Frankie Dettori for the first time. Baybridge will be in here as well. We obviously know that he won this last year in fascinating style, beating Great Baid. Veersestina is a very interesting contender for George Bowie, and My Prospero, Royal Rhymed, By Honour, Point Lonsdale will make it up. So, Ross, maybe I'll start with you this time. Horizon D'Or, what do we know about him? Why should he be at the top of the betting list? What's he done to be ahead of King of Steel?
Well, he's been thoroughly consistent, hasn't he? I was sort of looked and thought French horse, soft ground, he's going to love it. Then you go back through his form, and his win at Longchamp last time was on good to soft ground. As we know, the ground has been riding better than usual in France. He's run twice on heavy ground, and he's 1 from 1. So for me, the verdict was out actually as to whether this soft ground is what he's going to want. He's undoubtedly run to a high level, but I haven't got a huge grasp on the French flat form. Just looking at his pedigree, I wasn't completely sold that he would want this softer ground. So I just thought he was maybe a slightly false favourite, and it wouldn't be a given for me that he'll go off favourite on the day, actually. King of Steel, a little bit the same. He won his maiden in a bog at Nottingham. And straight away you think, nice big strong horse, he's going to want testing ground. But he then went up into a good class in the futurity and ran no sort of race at all. And when you go back and look at the form of that maiden win, it wasn't all that much. The runner-up is 94, the third horse is 76. Okay, he was impressive, but I just wonder whether actually it was his class that just got that job done as opposed to the suitability of the ground. I'd be staggered if they run Mostahdaf. I think he certainly is not going to want ground. I don't think he'd want it soft, and if it gets softer than that, even, it just doesn't make sense to me at all. And I could happily put a line through him. So actually, the one I came down on, and it's an each way selection really, is the mare Veersestina. She's going to love the ground. I thought in the Dahlia Stakes she was really, really impressive when she slammed Alhassan by 6 lengths. That was on soft ground. This is undoubtedly a step up, but I think it's interesting that they've targeted this meeting, and they had 2 options, and they've targeted this option. George Bowie's doing a lot of the work there for you, I think, in terms of what the target should be and why. She'll stay this trip really well. She'll love the ground in a race where I can happily put a line through a number of them. I mean, Baybridge is another one that no doubt you will see someone this weekend say he's going to love the ground. Well, is he? Because he ran in the Prix Gannet last year and ran badly, and that was on very soft ground. I think he's a really particular horse in that he's not quick enough when the ground is quick, and actually he doesn't want soft ground either. So he's got to have that really nice sort of just on the slightly slower side of good. It's not going to be that, I don't think. I think he's starting to look slightly exposed as to what he is versus what we all hoped he might be. So it was the mare for me.
And interestingly, the last mare to win this race was Magical when it was run on the inner track. Do you think she would be a horse that you would be too concerned about if they were to move it from one to the other?
No, I will be honest and say that I hadn't factored that into my thoughts. But then actually when Tom was talking about it, I thought actually it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for her if it did move into the inner course, albeit you then wouldn't want her to get traffic problems. But no, I think she's pretty adaptable in terms of which track you run on, and I just thought she had more going for her than a few ahead of her in the market.
Yeah, also interestingly that normal jockey Jamie Spencer is replaced by Oisin Murphy. Jamie's got on with her really well and has won on her several times, but Oisin comes in for this big race ride. So Veersestina for Ross at a probably quite a nice each way price, around about 8-1. Okay, Tom, from what we've heard and hearing a little bit more about the French angle, and maybe there is a few question marks around some of the others, is there a bigger price in here that you're looking for?
Yeah, there is. But first, I just want to say that point you just made there about Oisin Murphy riding Via Sistina. I think that's crucial, and that's the only reason why I'm against her. Because it's not that I don't like Oisin. I think he's fantastic, one of the best riders we have. But Via Sistina has got on exceptionally well with Jamie Spencer over the last year and a bit. She can hang badly to her right when she comes under pressure as well. She caused all of that interference. I think it was in Ireland last time or the time before that when she was hanging to her right under pressure. So Oisin's going to have his work cut out. It's not that Jamie's been replaced, from what I know. I think he's riding in Australia this weekend or next weekend, and he's out there. But that was the only reason that I was put off Via Sistina, because she will love the ground. Regarding the others, Horizon Door, I think, is the most likely winner of the race. The owners won this with Seal Away 2 years ago. I thought that victory at Longchamp last time out was super impressive. This horse has real push button acceleration on testing ground, and that will definitely stand him in good stead. But price dictates, as you say, that I look for a bigger option, because I don't think 11-4 or 9-4, whatever price he is now, was fair. I think he should be 3-1, 7-2, and if he is, then I'll probably have a few quid on him as well. I agree with Ross about King of Steel. I don't think the ground is ideal for him. Mostahdaf, I agree with you both. Don't think he should be running here. Breeders' Cup would be ideal. That Neon Turf victory, by the way, back in Riyadh in February, was one of the best performances I've seen. He's quite clearly a good globetrotter, and if they go to the Breeders' Cup, he's a major player. So yes, I'm going for a horse at a big price, which is My Prospero. Now, does he have the class to win this race? I don't know. Probably not. But at the same time, he's 12-1. We're looking at 3 places. I think he's got a great chance of hitting the frame at the very least. William Haggis has an excellent record in this race over the last few years. Dave was runner-up in 2019, then won it in 2020. Dubai Honor finished a close-up second in 2021, then My Prospero took third in this race last year. So Haggis is always there or thereabouts with his charge in here. Plus, I think that My Prospero has also been aimed at this race all season long. And I don't think that many of these horses have. So that's a tick in the box for him. He's being overlooked in the market slightly. I think he should be around 8-1. The reason for that is because he's not the most prolific. We've seen that this season. He has lost races he should have arguably won. And last time up at Goodwood, he wasn't as good as many would have expected him to be. But he got the job done. It was a confidence booster. It was off a 2-month layoff. He probably wasn't 100% primed, given this is his target and there's a gap between the 2 races. So I can excuse him for not winning that by 4 lengths, for example. The ground's come in his favour, which is absolutely crucial. I love the fact that a tongue tie's gone on. I love the fact that blinkers go on. This seems like today is the day for My Prospero. And at 12-1, 14-1, whatever price we're getting, given the negatives for a lot of other horses in this race, whether that be price, ground, the fact they might not even run, I think he's the best each way player in the race.
He's just a nearly horse, isn't he? He came third in it last year. I'm just trying to. I'd hate to compare anything to the likes of a horse like a Dave, but I remember when they threw on cheap pieces or whatever it was. Was it blinkers he wore? Was it cheap pieces?
I think it wore both in his career. Not in this race. It was pieces.
Yeah, I think I remember them. They shoved them. Actually, I'm looking at it now. Yes, they shoved cheap pieces on him, and he wore them 3 times, and then on the 4th occasion, he was second to Magical in the Champion Stakes. So there we go. But he's a bit like that, isn't he? He's a great ground horse, but he'll probably come a little bit short in sometimes in Group 1 contests when they're really, really hot. But you can't believe that this is the best edition of the Champion Stakes that we've ever seen, especially when you've got likes of Horizon Door, who, and I've got a lot of time respect for Jack Darcy, and the Coles have campaigned him quite creatively this season, but he bombed out last time. Might have been a bit over the top. The form hasn't exactly been franked as much as Horizon Door did look very impressive. So I think you guys are spot on to take the favourites on, but I think King of Steel should be favourite. I think 4-1 right now is a good price about a horse that, if the ground is the only question mark, I can't really find any other reasons not to be behind him. His third behind Hookham must be the best piece of form on offer in this race from the King George. We know how brilliantly Westover ran in the Prix Triomphe. Hookham didn't run his race with the ground going against him. It was good to soft that day. It was pretty tacky. If they go into the inner course, it will obviously benefit King of Steel. He's proved himself time and time again now at Ascot. He's not had a overly strenuous season. Yes, he might be a horse that might take a bit of knowing. I don't think that Frankie just jumping on and just getting there will be is a given. Although Amma Racing seems to think that it's a big benefit, but I think Kevin Stott did a very good job with him, and he's no longer with him. But Frankie gets the opportunity. But I suppose if there's going to be one jockey that's going to take over the ride, it would be Frankie, regardless. I just like to see him within here, and I just think he's the wrong price in the context of the race. But we probably will have a bit of a change up as we get closer to the day, especially if Mostahdaf comes out. So that is the QEII Champion Stakes.
Can I just jump in there, Jess, really quickly on that Frankie Dettori factor? The Dettori factor. Now, it's 4-1 right now, King of Steel. As you say, that's probably fair. He could easily go off favourite in this race, not just because he is this talking horse. He's the best physical specimen in the race by a mile, but because Frankie's on board. So if you're going to Ascot on Saturday and this horse is 5-2, I think he's a terrible bet. And here's a hypothetical situation for you that I think could come to fruition. Now, we know that Frankie doesn't ride well when it rains. He's admitted it. It's a situation, right? He's just not on top form. He hates being out there. He's on this big horse who's drawn in stall 1, probably going to be against the fence. Say they move this to the inner course. He's going to have no room whatsoever. Is Frankie really going to be bothered to push out? I mean, I don't know. I lose the will to live with Frankie occasionally. He's a great rider, but there are plenty of factors in here that I think Frankie's not a good jockey booking for King of Steel.
He's his final ever ride at Ascot.
And that's why this horse is going to be overbet, right?
Well, he might be overbet. Yes, I agree. That's why I'm saying right now at 4-1. This is why you got to listen to this podcast on Thursday, not listen to it on Saturday, as we know from last week, because probably a lot of the prices that Ross put up went hard by the time you listen to it on Saturday. But yes, I think that is right. I think that's fair enough. He will be, and there's obviously whirlpools and things like that. So people are going to be following Frankie in. I don't really agree that he doesn't ride well in the rain. I mean, do you not remember Caldine at the beginning of the year, Enable, when she won both 2 King Georges? I don't agree with that. I think he'll be out to make sure it's the Frankie show like he's done all year at Ascot on Saturday. So the only thing I would say is that coming out of stall 1 on the inner track might not be ideal for a big lump of a horse like that. But look.
Kevin Stott almost got in trouble, if you remember, at Royal Ascot from the inside stall. They managed to get a gap in the straight before his stamina went away. But there is a danger, as you say, that the inside stall coupled with Frankie could be a negative. Yeah.
Well, if there's one man to work it out, come rain or shine. Hopefully it will stop raining by Saturday. Look, let's see. I think it's an interesting one. It'll be tactically, it'll be fascinating. So that's it. We've got lots of different opinions. Always makes it a little bit more spicy. My Prospero for TC, Ross likes Via Sistina, and I like King of Steel. Okay, we've got 4 other races over on the course of Saturday. So I'd be assuming that our naps and next best come from some of the other races, because there's some really cracking looking field sizes as well. So I think Ross needs to take it away after being the star of the show last week.
Well, before I get to that, I've just looked on the BH website, and they've actually announced a colour change for King of Steel, and it's no longer a purple and white cap. It's one of those little hats with an umbrella on top. So Frankie should be fine. Nap and next best. I was torn between jumping to my jumps now, which has really kick-started last weekend at Chepstow, or being a good boy and sticking to the Champions Day at Ascot. And I've gone half and half. I thought the Nap was a pretty clear standout. In Kinross is just head and shoulders above them, isn't he? In the Champion Sprint Stakes at 150, he loves soft ground. He won this race last year on better ground than this. This is going to suit him even more because he is a 7 furlong specialist, really. So this extra stamina test at 6 furlongs on the stiff Ascot track will suit him. He did get a poor ride in the foray last time by Frankie. That was certainly one that got away. And provided it's not raining and Frankie can get cover from the rain through the mid part of the race, I think this is Frankie's best chance of the weekend. I think Kinross will comfortably win the 150. And then a little bit more from left field. The next best comes in the 235 at Stratford, and it's Chankea, who makes handicap debut for Mitchell Hunt, Chankaya named after that ancient Indian polymath, and he's been sort of catching the eye for not getting home over 2 mile 4 the last twice at Newton Abbot and New Toxteth. It's raced quite keenly, but races in cheek pieces. I think this is a really good bit of placing. Just 10 days after his last run, he comes here, he drops back to 2 mile 2 on a sharper track at Stratford. I think they're trying to get a win before the ground goes too soft. And I thought he was an interesting horse in the 2:35 at Stratford.
Okay, so Kinross. So Frankie's got all his different sets of goggles, so he can make sure he can see throughout the rain. And Chankaya to add to Ross's nap. So looking forward to that. And yeah, there's good racing at Market Racing as well. Lights of Sham Blue in action. But that's more of that. We've got Cheltenham next week as well, guys. So don't worry, the jumps is coming. But we'll let TC let us know what he is looking forward to seeing outside of the obvious main ones this weekend.
Yeah, my nap comes in the Long Distance Cup, the first race on Champions Day at Ascot at 1:15 p.m. This race is basically billed as a match between Kyprios and Trushan, two of the best stayers that we've seen over the last couple of years. Trushan lost his way at the end of last season, start of this season, and is now back at his best. Kyprios wasn't seen for 340 odd days, ran a bit disappointing last time. So it's technically a 50-50 match. We don't 100% know what to expect from Kyprios. Yet the market says Kyprios is 6-5 and Trushan is 2-1. I think that disparity is wrong. I think there should be 6-4 or 11-8 each of two. And for that reason, Trushan is going to be my nap. The ground is going to be bottomless. That will suit him. He's won this race for the last 3 years. Definitely been targeted here, despite the fact he's run recently. I thought Holidor was excellent on him in France last time. Went to the front. This horse can take a pull. She just made him settle out in front, kicked off the front end and just dominated that race. Despite the fact that it's a relatively short layoff since then, he didn't really have much of a race. He was never challenged. So Trushan is going to be my nap. I think he'll have the fitness edge and definitely the track edge on Kyprios in the 1:15 at Ascot. And my next best, given Trushan's a relatively short price, it's going to come in the Balmoral Handicap, the race everyone will want to try find the winner of, because not only is it the last race on Ascot on Saturday, but it's also the race with a ridiculous market, like 7-1 the field. It's at 425, should just clarify that. And the horse I like is Migration. Now, look, this could be an each way play, but obviously I'm going to put him up as a win pick. He's top weight, but the ground will suit. He loves testing conditions. He won the Lincoln earlier this year, coming from virtually last 2 first under Benoit de la Sayette, who takes the ride again. He won that race actually very closely. If you go back to watch the replay, he had the race won at the half furlong marker and just moved further and further clear. He disappointed last time in the Gordon Richards Stakes, but that was against good horses. And it was also on a day at Newmarket where it was impossible to make up any ground from behind. He was last in a small tactically run affair, which is never going to make any inroads against better animals like Adayar, for example. I like the fact he's had a layoff since. If you look at his form figures off layoffs of 150 days or longer, they read 2-4-2, 8-1. And the 8 actually came in this race last year when he was given a pretty poor ride and would have definitely been in the first 4 if he got that clear run up the inside rail when jockey switched him. He got stopped at a crucial stage, stayed on late, but only finished 8th. I think he's relatively well handicapped. I think he's a group horse in a handicap, which is always a tick in the box. And they're going to go hard early, which will suit his running style. So Migration is my next best in the 425 Ascot.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to have a chat with Benoit de la Sayette, and I asked him about Migration last night, and his eyes just lit up. He was so looking forward to getting back on him. A horse that's been made such a statement for him at the beginning of the season, and they just nurtured him. They've had to, because he's obviously got a fair few problems and only had 2 runs this year, and it's all been about this race. Okay, thank you, TC. I'm looking forward to that. It's amazing. This time last year, if you thought that Kyprios was going to be 11-8 for this race, you think it's mad, but maybe a bit of an underwhelming prep run in the Irish St. Ledger. And Trushan, does he have the fight in him? That's what I want to see. Like, he's ran a bizarre race on his win at Doncaster, where he was so free, and then he just had it all his own way last time. But if he gets into a fight, that's where it's going to really matter. So looking forward to that indeed. Okay, my nap and next best also come at Ascot. I'm going for the Fillies and Mares Stakes 225, where I'm looking forward to seeing Time Lock, who is coming off the back of 2 straight successes. I think they're just sort of getting to the bottom of her last run at Newmarket. Yes, it was against a weaker group of fillies, but they've really worked out getting her confidence, and taking her to France has really helped. That's what they said. It really gave her that kind of a spring in her step that she needs. She will have William Buick on board this time instead of Ryan Moore, and that's going to be a no poor replacement at all, as he gets crowned champion jockey on Saturday. I think there's ways you can pick. You can pick out a Free Wind, the favourite currently in the race. She's a little bit hit and miss. Jackie O's been a bit of a bridesmaid, and yes, she's got genuine Group 1 form, but she's ran quite a lot this season, and she comes off the back of a run just recently where she had to travel all the way to France, and I think that might have been quite a tough race, whereas Time Lock comes into it with maybe slightly better preparation. So I'm hoping that she can provide Harry and Roger Charlton a Group 1 winner before Harry takes over the licence on his own. And then in the 425, the Balmoral, I'm going to take on TC. I do love Migration. He's got a lot of weight again this time, like he did in the Lincoln at the beginning of the year. But I think Barrador's been a different horse. We've talked about Headgear from My Prospero earlier on, and Barrador's been a different horse since they put a set of cheap pieces on. He won at Ascot in July at a double figure price. He proved that was no fluke, coming just a little bit further back in trip at Doncaster last time. He's up £9 since his first win at Ascot, but I think it's really been about this Headgear and a bit of underfoot conditions that's really helped him. Again, William Buick on board this time for George Bowie, who I think has had this race planned out a bit like he's probably done with Via Sistina. So Barrador for me in the Balmoral, along with Time Lock. So looking forward to it. A great day of racing to come. Keep an eye on the weather. Keep an eye on what Ascot decides in terms of the tracks. But I think we're all kind of hoping that it stays as it is. I think even that if the background is a slightly better in the inner course for King of Steel, I think after listening to this podcast, I wouldn't mind him having a little bit more space for Frankie to deal with on the normal course, the round course. So that's it. Thank you for listening. We've got a good few offers for you guys this week. We've got a free bet builder to use on Liverpool versus Everton on Saturday, which is available to all customers. We've also got another offer: place 2 £5 football multiples, get a £5 free bet for this Saturday and Sunday, available again to all customers. And then for all the horse racing fans who've listened to this podcast and have got some of your favourite selections from any one of us or all of us, place 2 £5 horse racing multiples, get a £5 free bet on Saturday, again available to all customers. And for all new SBK customers, you can get £30 of free bets when you sign up and bet £10 for the first time. Don't forget to subscribe and like. That's the end of the flat turf season. We'll be back next week to preview Cheltenham, which is coming. Thank you, and see you soon.